to I'll Hang Up and Listen. The mask is back. Even though they won last game, I refuse to wear it, as you all know, because it didn't feel like a win. But thanks, everybody, tuning in to I'll Hang Up and Listen, brought to you by Fatty Beer Company, Western New York's premier market and tap room, with over 300 beers to choose from. Make sure you check out any of their locations for a happy hour, the Super Bowl, if you choose to watch it this year, a Sabres game, or any, honestly, sporting event, or just for their great vibes, trivia, entertainment. Make sure you let them know Two Goalies when Mike sent you. You can find them at Fatty Beer on Instagram and Twitter, fattybeer.com. And as always, Buffa Logo Apparel, one of the best places to get all of your locally designed Bills and Sabres gear. You can find them at Buffalo Logo Co. on Instagram and Twitter, buffalogo.com. Buffalo Sabres squeak this one out 3-2 with 2 goals and 3 points from Alex Tuck. Another goal from Bowen Byram, which we're going to get into in a little bit. Connor, I know it's been a minute since you've been on. Your immediate reactions, and honestly, we didn't get your. We're going to talk about it because we didn't get your reactions to the Devils game and what happened there, obviously, but just your reactions to this game and them finally winning their 4 in a row for the first time this season. And I'm not sure since when the last time they won.
January of 2023.
January of 2023. So we are 2 years removed from the last time they won 4 games in a row.
Which is surprising because you would think that that team at the end of 2023 would have won 4 in a row, especially the run they went on with Levi there at the end of the regular season.
Yeah.
But yeah, I went back and confirmed that it was, in fact, January of 2023 that the last time the Sabres had a 4-game win streak. It was tough to even get 3 last season, so that's not necessarily surprising that they didn't have one last season. But definitely the season before, I thought they might have had one in the spring. But doesn't matter. They got it. I think that this team is trying to prove not only to themselves, but to the franchise, the ownership, the management, and also the fan base that they're not going to quit. Obviously, we'll get into the start of this game, which was directly related to the end of last game and everything to do with that. But with this specific game tonight, with a backup goalie, who, in my opinion, James Reimer played really well tonight, kept the team in it.
Can't fault him for either goal.
No, can't fault him. And also, he showed why the Sabres brought him back. That steady veteran presence that you need out of a guy who only plays once or maybe even twice a month with a bell cow like Luukkonen lately. So a couple clicks for him. I thought he was unbelievable tonight. I think that, yeah, the question has been toughness for this team recently, but they've at least, especially since the 13-game winless streak, they've shown, I would say, a better level of toughness than they did during that winless streak.
Yeah.
The season currently, I split it up into 3 acts, right? Like, obviously, it wasn't a great start to the season, but their first 20 games, especially after that West Coast road trip, 11-9-1. Yep. After that win against the Sharks, they were in 3rd place in the Atlantic. We were all super hopeful. Darlene gets hurt. They lose 13 in a row. Obviously, that was really bad, but a lot of circumstances led to that winless streak, right? Also, a lot of really good opponents in there, some unfortunate bounces. They couldn't really hold a lead or pull out a lead. It doesn't matter how it happened. It happened. So you start 11-9-1. You're 0-10-3 during the winless streak. And then they are 11-7-1 since the 13-game winless streak. So if you break down the season into 3 acts, there's 2, I would say, above league average parts of the season. And then there's that one stretch that is probably going to be the reason they missed the playoffs for 14 years. And obviously that no team can survive that in the NHL, and it's inexcusable no matter which way you slice it. But I do think this team is showing some level of heart. They're showing some level of stick-to-itiveness that, they easily could have quit after that winless streak. But I think they've played relatively well over the past month and a half, and I'm excited to see what happens, especially after the 4 Nations break.
Yeah, I know you get these guys get a little break here. Not sure. Have there been injuries to Team USA's roster?
Not super notable ones. Obviously, the one everybody was looking at was Austin Matthews, but he's been back for a couple
Yeah, it looks like
weeks
he's going
now.
to play, right? I mean, unless
Yeah.
he decides not to.
Chris Kreider has like 5 points in his last 20 games, so I'm sure they're really glad they chose him over
that
Jake
one.
Austin. Same with Trocheck and Brock Nelson. They're going to fill their roles that they were supposedly meant to fill.
They hope they have their hopes. So
yeah, I guess we'll see. I mean, at the end of the day, of course they want to win, but the tournament, it's not about winning. It's about creating excitement for the Olympics. And I'm not sure how you're going to create excitement with Brock Nelson and Vincent Trocheck, but that is what it is. And I'm excited to watch regardless. I think
not sure if you saw Crosby got hurt tonight.
I didn't see.
Not too sure how serious that is, but he did leave the game. So that could be a big blow to Team Canada for sure. I mean, they're already stacked too, but still, I mean, Crosby at his age is still performing at an elite level.
My question last week was when Heiskanen got hurt, there's only 8 or 9 eligible NHL Finnish defensemen, and Jokiharju wasn't picked for the Finnish team. Like, who else are they going to get to fill in that 6th or 7th defenseman role on Team Finland if it's not Henry Jokiharju, which I guess says a lot about him and what his national program feels about his game and where we are with our current 5th or 6th defenseman. But that's neither here nor there. I hope Luukkonen gets a game, depending on his health. Obviously, he couldn't go tonight. And then I think Dahlin is maybe not on power play 1, but probably power play 2 for Sweden and potentially on that top pairing with Victor Hedman. And if not the top pairing, definitely the second pairing and going to get a lot of ice time. So I'm really looking forward to it. Generally best on best. We can talk a little bit more about it next week leading up to it, but I'm so excited to see high-level international hockey for the best players in the world, which we haven't seen since 2016. So I think it's going to be amazing.
We're going to talk about this right now, actually, from Big Fungus. I'm glad Gilbert fought for no reason tonight. He once again proved he's the only one with a sack tonight. It's too bad that energy didn't exist when your literal star was taken out. I know we didn't get – obviously you weren't on the post-game show, so we'll get your thoughts now. Everybody knows my thoughts. I literally recorded it in real time as it was happening. And then obviously lost my mind on the post-game. But Denny Gilbert, here's the thing. Like, I'm not a big fan of, like, staged fights unless there's a reason for it. There's no reason for him to fight Olivier tonight. Like, I mean, I know they were both they obliged. He is fine, whatever. Who doesn't like a fight? But it's one period too late. It's against the wrong team. I didn't really care what player would have been for the Devils. Just fight anybody. But my thing here is, and I just want to make it clear, I don't want Alex Tuck or Dylan Cousins or those guys fighting a staged fight. But if you're trying to send a message as a team that you're not weak and you're not soft, shouldn't it be one of those guys and not the guy literally everybody knows is one of the only guys on your roster willing to oblige or willing to defend his teammates or willing to fight at any given moment?
Well, I would imagine that was Dennis Gilbert's idea, right?
I agree. No, I agree. But it just should, in that moment, if that's what you're trying to, if that's the message you're trying to convey, we all know Daddy Gilbert is willing to fight. Everybody knows that. I just wish that it was somebody else, that we wouldn't expect. And even if it's not even much of a fight, just scrap, you know what I mean? You don't even have to throw 2 swings and then just go hit the deck. Like, just show.
I mean, like you said, like something probably, I personally, I didn't watch, I was out all day on Sunday. I didn't watch much of the game on Sunday. So I didn't see the end of the game after what happened to Tage. Ideally, you would have of course, we've heard everything in the post game. We've heard Lindy, we've heard the players. I think they've all acknowledged that something should have been done, right? They didn't do it, and that was a mistake, and they've acknowledged it. And I do think that they've had the appropriate response in terms of even Alex Tuck saying, like, we've addressed it, it won't happen again, right? Like, these guys aren't perfect. Yeah, they didn't have the response that they wanted in the moment, but I do think that they've addressed it, right? Like I guarantee.
I hope, because we've heard this song and dance before in the past.
Yeah, maybe. Like we're not in the room. We don't know exactly what's been said. I just think that Lindy's not that type of guy. They all sat through Rob Ray's Hall of Fame induction ceremony the other night. I think they have a general idea of what it takes to be a winning team in this league, but also a tough team, right? Like, I think a lot of people are. This is where it is kind of frustrating for me. I think there's a lot of tough guys on the internet calling people soft right now. I'm not saying that's you. I'm saying it's a lot of people who are telling NHL players what they should do in a split-second decision in any given moment, in any given game, and calling these guys pussies, where they would, number one, never say it to their face, and number two, even in a beer league game, and a lot of guys who have never played hockey before would never have that type of response in any type of real-life situation. So to tell NHL players what to do in a split-second situation when they didn't even see necessarily what happened, I do think there's a lot of fiend outrage in terms of what's been happening the past 2 days. I think we can all agree that something should have happened, but I do believe that there's a lot of unnecessary, like, this team is so fucking soft, these guys are pussies, just for the sake of saying that these guys are pussies because people want something to be mad at because of the state of the franchise. Both things can be true at the same time, right? It can be, yes, something should have happened. We acknowledge that we didn't do it correctly, and we can also move on from it and focus on winning hockey games, because that's all that's going to matter at the end of the day. Is if these guys win. If we were on a 10-game win streak and that happened, maybe it wouldn't have happened in a different culture, a different situation. This wouldn't even be a thing. But it's a thing because this team is mirrored in a 14-year playoff drought and coming off a month and a half ago, a 13-game win streak. Culture is everything. And I do believe, yeah, it's a big deal, but it is not as big of a deal as a lot of people are making it out to be.
I agree with a lot of what you said, but in terms of the response, I mean, I'm not out there calling guys, I'll be for, I think they're soft, 100%. I think it's hard to, we've called them soft all season. It's not something we've just started calling them. But that being said, they have iPads on the bench, Hurls. They have eyes. You have
what I'm saying is that, like, the guys on the ice in that moment, right? Like,
yeah, but Hurls, make my point across. It's not hard to figure out. Your guy is face first in the ice. His bucket is over there, the puck's there, and both hands are around his head. That's your star player, that's your leading scorer, that's your best forward by and far, by a mile. Something just happened to him. You got guys leaning over the bench screaming. I don't care. You're 6'5", you're 6'6", and it's not just me saying it. It's not just Andrew Peters or Craig Rivet or Matt Barnaby saying it. Everybody's fucking saying it. They said it on Spit and Chicklets today. It doesn't matter if you didn't see it. You have enough. You've been playing long enough, and you've been around the game long enough, and you've seen this happen long enough to know something. Your star player just took a hit to the head, grabbed somebody, and just start fucking throwing swings. That's all it takes. That's it. Addressed. And you don't even have to fight the guy full blown out. And you're like, who are you? Like, and it shouldn't even be no incident. It doesn't have. It couldn't be because you got a match penalty. It should be Jack Hughes. It should be one of their star players. Like we addressed it when Drew Stafford jumped on Chris Neal, and then our enforcers went over the bench, and Andrew Peters or Andrew Mayer said, "There's no puck." That's the way it needs to be. Yeah. That's the way it needs. And I don't care if it doesn't happen on that shift. It needs to happen on the next shift. You are in 29th fucking place. 29th place. And me personally, and I know I might be in a minority or maybe I'm not, I'll take addressing that and showing your fans and showing the league that you are not soft and that you are not going to be pushed around in your own barn and that you are not a team to be taken lightly, at least physically. That is more important than that win when you're in 29th place. And Brad.
Yeah, I mean, again, like, I don't think we disagree here. I just think that it doesn't need to be something that's discussed like after tonight, as long as that type of situation doesn't happen again, right? I think
hope not.
No, yeah, exactly. If it does happen again and it becomes like a trend, then it's emblematic of who they are as people, as teammates, as an organization. I think they've all acknowledged that they didn't necessarily do what they would want to in hindsight at the moment. Like I think that they were trying to win the game and they didn't want to jeopardize their position in the game given everything that's already happened this season. And I do understand that to a point because like if you put yourself in a bad position by going over and like attacking a guy who wasn't even involved, you're going to get a penalty and then you're going to put your team in a bad position. Like sometimes you do need to think about these things as an NHL hockey player, right? So yeah, there's a lot to be said about having a physical response, like even going over and cross-checking a guy, whether that was Siegenthaler, who was like swiping guys' sticks away in the immediate aftermath, or if it was, I don't even know who would, given that Gilbert wasn't playing, like even if it's Beck Malenstein going out and dropping the gloves with somebody the next shift. Like I think absolutely.
Eddie Gilbert was playing. They played
Was
11.
was he playing on Sunday?
Yeah, he just wasn't out there.
I see.
He might not have been playing. Actually, I think he was. I just don't think he played much in the third.
Yeah, I guess I'm just like, I'm wondering that nothing happened in the immediate aftermath. We all know that. But in the shifts afterwards, however much time was left in the game, I'm just surprised that either him or someone else wouldn't pick out another guy, even an enforcer on their team, and just try to drop the gloves, right? Like that.
You saw it tonight, Washington, Florida, two teams that are battling for position in the East, two top teams, a full line scrum after a goal, I think. You saw it actually in the Golden Knights Rangers game. Rangers threw a big hit, and and those are two teams that are battling, especially the Rangers.
Yeah,
well, I mean, not more Rangers than Vegas. I mean, I just, to me, it's just like, I understand. It's one thing if you're 2 points out of a wild card spot, and even then, it's hard for me to defend not doing anything. I listened to Zucker's response, and I know it was a well-worded one, but I just don't buy it. I don't buy it because that's the same guy who literally, I forget who it was. It was O'Brien with there was a dirty hit when he was with Arizona, and he did exactly what we wanted to happen on Sunday. He did exactly that in an immediate response in a close game. So it's not like he hasn't been in that position before and responded the right way.
I saw that hit though. Like obviously the guy turned, but he like elbowed a dude in the back of the head into the boards. Like it looked dangerous. You know what I mean? Like
so what happened to Tage?
I just know, obviously, but like I think this is like, it's a slippery slope. An eye for an eye makes the world blind. I think there can be a response, but it's got to be intelligent, right? Like you're not just going to go over and sucker punch that dude. Like you can't do that. So there's got to be some type of rubric. There's got to be a standard that's set over the course of the season, which they clearly haven't done. And I think that's part of the reason they didn't respond the way that they did, right? So I don't know. I do think it's a balance, and I'm not all for fighting the way that it was in the 90s and even the early 2000s. I've never been a massive fan of it. I understand that it does have its place in the game, not as much in this game as it does 20 years ago. But
I mean, you say that, but then you see what happened to Tage Thompson.
For sure. But what I'm saying is that like fighting as a part of NHL hockey, you and I both know it doesn't happen nearly as often as
No.
And enforcers aren't even on some NHL rosters the way that they once always had a spot, right? So it is a different game, and I do think you need to have a plan in place for these types of situations. And it just doesn't sound like they had a plan in place and nobody knew what to do. So I don't know. I'm not going to, believe me, I think we've all agreed they should have done something. But moving past tonight, and especially like past the Four Nations break, I'm not going to be outraged about it. I'm very happy that they finally won 4 in a row. And especially after a 13-game winless streak, to even be within shouting distance at this point, like, yeah, no moral victories, but it is somewhat of an accomplishment. And I think that at least should be celebrated in this moment.
No, I'm happy they finally won 4 in a row, because how many times they've won 3 in a row and just couldn't get over that hump. So this is nice. Actually, it might have been around this time of the year last season when they won 3 in a row for the first time. I'd have to go back.
It was late February.
So it's right. So yeah, it was definitely February. So it's nice. Definitely. Don't get me wrong. I am happy.
And they did it without their guy that went down, right?
Yeah.
Like their best offensive player. I think a lot of guys stepped up tonight, especially Alex Tuck, who I think had the strongest response to what happened. I think, of course, like the Gilbert thing was a little bit staged, was a little bit cringeworthy at the beginning of the game. But throughout the game, I think they responded well. I do.
I get why Gilbert did it, because maybe he wanted to set a precedent, and maybe other guys would say, hey, like, join me in the trenches here. But for me in that situation, if you are going to carry this over to the next game against a team not named the New Jersey Devils, for me, it needed to be somebody not named Dennis Gilbert. And that's my only thing. Like, cause that would be okay. Like, Dylan Cousins just got into a fight. It wasn't a great fight, but he responded, and I'll take that as a win. That's my
well, if he's
but you know what I'm saying? Like, a player that you wouldn't expect to be that, especially since the Hathaway fight. That's
what I'm saying. Yeah, like, and you don't want Alex Tuck doing that either, because like you don't want to risk him getting.
And I am saying I don't want those guys doing it. But if you are gonna do that in that moment to start this game,
yeah, I'm just trying to think of forwards, especially against fucking Olivier, who has 10 fights in the NHL this season. Like, who could you possibly put out there that would even have a chance? Like, Gilbert got his ass beat.
Yeah, he did.
Are you gonna throw Zach?
He got his lunch fed to him.
But like, this is what I'm saying. Like, you're throwing your toughest guy out there, which was probably his idea, and they like planned it pre-game because that's the reason Olivier was in the starting lineup. Who else are you gonna throw out there that would possibly even have a chance against that guy? You know what I mean? So I don't know. I think that we've addressed it just like the team has, and we can move on.
Yeah. We got a question here from Hunter. Do we trade Zucker? Yes or no? What if he comes back and pulls a Molson? If we can get a first and possibly use that first, and for Elias Pettersson, I'd do it. Like, here's the thing, and I kind of talked about this before when it comes to Jason Zucker and the season he's had. Yeah, that's a guy you want in your room for sure. I just kind of I know Kevin Adams said that he's spoken to his agent. I just really, really find it hard to believe that Jason Zucker, a guy who has never won a Stanley Cup, wouldn't want an opportunity with a contender this late in his career. You know what I mean? And you know what? And I think it was Walt too. It might have been Walt, or I forget who it was on Twitter. Tweeted out. He goes, "This might be the highest you ever see his value for the rest of his career. To not cash in on it right now will be criminal." And I don't want the picks. I want what the picks can get you in a trade if you can trust Kevin Adams to make it happen. And just your thoughts on that, Hurls. I agree. If he's not signing an extension by the deadline, you are absolutely trading him.
It's complicated because I'm not sure.
It shouldn't be, though.
Yeah, I'm not sure you're going to be able to get that information from him, because then he loses all leverage.
I mean, that's great. If he's not, you can't make the same mistake that you made with Ullmark, though. You have to trade. If he is not signing a contract by the NHL trade deadline, you are trading him. You have to. You have to. You can't lose him for nothing.
I mean, crazier things have happened, but 8 games until the NHL trade deadline. What if they go 7-0-1?
Then he needs to sign an extension.
And if he doesn't, you still trade him?
Yeah. You can't lose him for nothing. It's one thing, Tanner, if you're 6 points back of a playoff spot. How many teams do you have to leapfrog right now? And
that's the thing, though. Like, it is tight enough that, like, if they theoretically do go on a run, they're right back in it.
I would hope for sure, but I just think there's too much.
But if you're right back, if you continue this momentum, and then you trade Jason Zucker, then you're out.
But then he should want to sign a contract.
But
he should want to. If you're talking to his agent, if you are talking, then he should want it. To me, you can't lose that guy for nothing. That's horrible asset management. That's horrible. You can't lose that guy for
Maybe
nothing.
so, but like, haven't we talked about? I mean, the point of all of these like past 3 seasons. Of course, we wouldn't be tanking if we're just trading somebody for assets. But if they do go on a little bit of a run here and get into playoff position, that's the whole point, right?
Okay, I agree with you, but you right now you have probably a month to sign him, right? You have a month.
It's March 7th, yeah.
Yeah. So and you have that break for the Four Nations tournament where
You
you're going to have time, huh?
You at least got to talk to him, yeah.
Yes. So if you can't get this deal done between now and then, that just tells me he's not interested in extending here. That's what that tells me. Because what's the difference between signing now or signing 2 weeks from now than signing in, post deadline? No, if you want to be here, if you want to be part of the solution, then you should be willing to sign between now and the deadline. And if you're not willing to do that, well, then guess what? We're shipping you off, and we'll talk to you in the offseason when you're in UFA. That's my opinion. As much as valuable as Jason Zucker is, it's just too much of a hill to climb to trust. Yeah. It's just, to me, like you can't give up that potential big time. It's almost a guaranteed first round pick at this point. How well he's had, like it's almost guaranteed. Maybe even more than that.
I really do think it depends on what happens after the Four Nations break, because a lot of guys, like we've talked about, like there could be some injuries in that tournament. There could be some teams that need that exact type of player, and also the Sabres could get healthy because there's only 2 guys playing and one guy that's only going to have a significant role in Dahlin.
Yep.
God forbid he gets hurt. But let's say he has a great tournament, comes back, and they continue this momentum, and they are in a position to at least contend for a wild card spot in the month of March. After everything that's happened. Like, I agree with you. You don't want to lose him for nothing. And if he can't commit to it, that's on him.
Yeah.
But I just don't see Kevin Adams trading Jason Zucker in that scenario. Personally.
I just
don't think he's going to do it. I'm not saying whether that's the right decision or not. But if they're contending in early March, let's say 6 points out, like we talked about after that Capitals lost a few weeks ago, if you're 6 points out, especially with how much movement there's been in that portion of the Eastern Conference this season, you have a shot without question. They're 10 points out at the moment. Yeah. And if you win 4 of the next 5, you're absolutely in the conversation.
Yeah.
So I don't know. And I think that could be predicated on a lot of what happens in this tournament. I really do believe that. But if they're contending, there's no way they're trading him. He's the de facto assistant captain of this team. And he seems like he's the voice in the room. He seems like a guy that people lean on, especially for the young guys. He's brought so much to this team in terms of what it's like to be a pro. He's the Kyle Okposo that they lost when he got traded to Florida.
Yep.
So I think a lot of guys would be not only miffed, but quite frankly, really pissed off at Kevin Adams if they were to actually trade him, if they were contending.
I mean, I guess you're right. I just don't see them being 6 points out by the deadline.
Of course,
it would take a lot of losing on teams ahead of you, teams that are finally starting to pick up steam.
But did you see them winning 4 in a row? Like, I don't think any of us did, right? So
I mean, I saw them winning tonight for sure.
Yeah, but like these past 4 games, like I like put it out there a couple weeks ago that getting to 22, 26 and 3 at the deadline would be the goal to even have a shot coming out of the Four Nations. And if they win on Saturday in Nashville, they'll actually get there.
They have Nashville, the Rangers, and the Ducks the next 3 games. But they don't play the Rangers, the Ducks until end of February, 22nd and 25th.
Like before the tournament, you have one very winnable game to get to the spot that you would have wanted to be at 5 games ago.
But then things do get tough. You play the Hurricanes, you play the Canadians in back-to-back games, which honestly they've been good this season, surprisingly. You have the Sharks, Tampa, Florida, Oilers, Red Wings, Nova Knights. Yeah, you have a lot. Right after that, you go on a long stretch of really tough games. But regardless, that's just my opinion. I just can't see a team like, especially it's from a GM who has made it known that he's trying to flip assets for players, and we think he was in on Nikas at in the offseason. I just don't want to go into next season with all these prospects with no places for them to play. Like we saw Rosen in tonight's lineup, which is great, but the second Tage is back. He's back. He's already said Kevin has already said he's wants to bring back Greenway. There's not going to be many roster spots open for some of these guys, and you just got to start shipping some of them out. And if attaching first round picks to prospects and players is what's going to get it done, then I would rather have.
What do you make of Kevin Weeks's eyeball emoji?
I have no idea, dude. Do you? Like, what is that?
A picture of Chippewa and Pearl with the eyeball emoji. It was really funny. I think his name's Sean Deepaz. He's the producer of the What Chaos show with Pete Blackburn and DJ Bean. It's a great podcast if people want to check it out. I think he's from Buffalo, but he quote tweeted it. He was just like, "This is actually super funny by Weeks because I would say maybe 15 people outside of Western New York know where this intersection actually is in the world."
I know he does funny stuff like that, but usually it's with a purpose. It's what I mean.
Like he's well connected and he's got sources, and particularly in the trade market. Like how many times has he had one of those selfie videos where he's out of frame and he breaks a massive trade out of nowhere?
Yeah,
like he's extremely well connected, and as many discussions as Buffalo is rumored to be in. Like I saw earlier today, it was a TSN update that the Flames are interested in Dylan Cousins. So, especially over the Four Nations break with guys that aren't playing or even guys that are playing, look at what happened in the NBA over the weekend. Luka Doncic got traded. All right, I'm watching.
Dude, that was wild.
I'm watching Luka Doncic sitting on the Lakers bench right now, which is just like one of the more wild things I've seen.
He still can't believe it, dude. He just bought a $15 million house.
I've heard that was apparently not completely done.
Okay.
Don't believe everything you read on the internet. I will say that there's been a lot of stuff floating around in the past couple of days in response to all this, and I've been trying to narrow a lot of it down. Either way, it drives the point home that in professional sports, there's obviously less no trade clauses in the NBA than there are in the NHL. Anything can happen, and if a team really sets their mind to it.
Yeah.
If the Flames want to go out and get Dylan Cousins and get him in a new scenario to get him back to that 2022, 2023 level, and they're willing to trade in a package, hopefully with a first-round pick, maybe even another player from the Sabres, someone like Rasmus Andersson, or maybe even a guy like Nazem Kadri. We all want veterans in the room, right? Go and get the Flames' leading goal scorer. Go and get a guy who has proven that he's a pro in this league, much like Jason Zucker, much like Brandon Saad. Or even Blake Coleman, who we've talked about for a long time.
I love Blake Coleman.
Who could add a two-way veteran presence to the room? Like
what is Dylan Cousins and say a pick, a prospect get you from Calgary? Does that get you Mackenzie Weegar?
I say Dylan Cousins and a first-round pick. Rasmus Andersson has to be on the table, right?
Him or Weegar, right?
Yeah, and I personally would prefer Andersson, but I think
Which was the right-handed defenseman?
Andersson is.
Weegar isn't?
He might be. I'm not sure off the top of my head.
Yeah, I'll take either or. We need a right-handed defenseman. But we talk about defense that leads us into the next point. Bowen Byram's future. He's been incredible for them this season. We've talked about him before. We know the cap is going up. Samuelson apparently is on IR again. I read it. Oh, wow. Hold on. Jeff Merrick said an Owa Power trade is catching steam. We need to go to Twitter while we're live here. That's because that's a very reliable source. Is that recent, Big Fungus?
Merrick. I don't see it on his recent Twitter, but maybe he said it on a podcast or something.
It's what I'm saying.
So I'll say this. We had that discussion about Byram and Power last time I was on last week. I've dug a little bit deeper into it, and I wish I had these numbers during that discussion to make me look smarter. But I do believe that Byram, as good as he's looked, which he has looked really good, he has been aided a ton by being partners with Rasmus Dahlin. He has. And that is represented in the fact that when he's played with anybody else, quite literally any other partner this season and also in his career, he hasn't had as close to as good of an impact as he's had playing with Dahlin.
Well, look at the other guys that are on the other defensemen.
No, but that's not even just that. Like, he played with Kel McCarr briefly in Colorado, but when he wasn't playing with Kel McCarr, he also didn't have the same impact that we're seeing currently, right? So I think you need to look at that situation with nuance, and you need to say, hey, this guy is very good when he has the freedom to be good because he feels supported by a guy who is basically a better version of himself. Could he exist without him? Could he be the top guy on your second pairing if he doesn't always play with Rasmus Dahlin? Because if you sign him to an $8.5-9 million a year contract, are you going to want both of those guys on the same pairing? Probably not, right? Because that would mean you're trading Owen Power, you're trading Samuelsson, you're trading someone else to get Byron to lead that second pairing. And if he hasn't proven in his 4 to 5 NHL seasons that he can support a pairing with reliable numbers on his own, that's something to think about.
I just everything I've seen from Byram, especially in the defensive zone, I listen, I know he's capable offensively. I kind of focus when it comes to him in the D zone, and I just see a much more responsible player.
Well, he's been better, especially than what he was billed at to be when the Sabres made that trade with Middlestat last year. Like, he's improved exponentially.
No, I agree. That's what I'm saying.
What I'm also saying is that I do think Dahlin has really helped him.
Well, yeah, Dahlin and Makar is going to help any guy that he plays with. It doesn't matter.
Those are, in my opinion, 2 of the top 5 best defensemen in the league. So,
yeah. I just think I think that when I look at the player as a whole, is Owen Power going to give you more offensively? Yes, he's going to. He's bigger. He's got a longer stride. He's got a look what he did at Michigan. Leading to us drafting him. But when I look at Bowen Byram, I think maybe he's a step behind where Owen Power is offensively, but he's 2 steps ahead of where he is defensively easily, and that's what I need out of Power. And now in 3 seasons, we haven't seen it.
I think we've seen it in spurts, and I do think that he is at least aware. It's not like he's not trying to improve, right? Like, it's not like he's an absolute liability in his own zone. Yes, he's made some mistakes in front of his own net. Of course, we want some more toughness out of him, corners and in front of his own net, and also awareness in terms of not puck watching and knowing where guys are, and just generally being a responsible defensive defenseman in his own.
Which he didn't have to do at Michigan because the team was stacked. And
right, but as a guy who, if you're going to trade Bowen Byram, that you're projecting to lead your second pair, he's 21, 22 years old in his 3rd season in the league. You gave him that contract at the beginning of last season as a projection. Mm-hmm. He has not met that yet. He hasn't. He was drafted number 1 overall for a reason. And it's because of those projections. And it's because of the pedigree. And it's because of all of the good things that we've seen from him. Mm-hmm. Owen Power playing with Henry Jokiharju, Matthias Samuelsson, Connor Clifton, Jacob Bryson. He's rarely played with Rasmus Dahlin. Playing with all of these other guys.
To your point earlier, because it didn't work.
No, but playing with all of these other guys throughout his career, his numbers are way better than Bowen Byram is playing with those same guys. They are.
Well, because Bowen Byram hasn't played with those guys very often.
He has played with some of them, and in the times that we've seen him do that, it has not been good. So I just think it's worthy to consider these things rather than just looking at it just by the way that we watch the game.
I mean, maybe again, I judge by what I'm watching in individual situations.
I mean, I do too, but I also look at both to help me see the things that I can't see with my own eyes. So I think it's worthy to consider both things. And obviously Kevin Adams is doing that. And whether we want him to make these decisions or not, whether he's going to be the general manager of the team after this season,
He's going to be, if he hasn't been fired now, he's still.
He probably will be. Yeah.
He
So
will
he
be,
is making these decisions. Like as much as people like or don't like analytics, there's a reason every single NHL team has a department of at least 3 people running that department. Mm-hmm. They influence a lot of decisions.
Well, we don't have a big department, unfortunately.
I know, but we're not making these decisions, right? And the coaches are, the scouts are, everyone related to every single aspect of what makes a hockey player, not only in things that they see on the ice, but the data they're tracking, the video they're watching. I don't know. I do think it's going to come down to a combination of what they're seeing and also what they're charting. And everything that I've seen from both gives Owen Power the edge.
We will see. Again, it's not that I don't believe in Owen Power that it'll get better, but if you're asking me to choose one over the other, that's the one I'm choosing. It'd be nice if we could find a way to afford all 3. It sucks that we're paying.
I don't think it's out of the question.
That's why I said the cap is going up. You are going to essentially invest almost $30 million on 3 defensemen. But I think that if you could find a way to get Matthias Samuelsson off your books, it makes it a lot easier to do. I'll say that much.
Good luck.
What?
Good luck doing that.
It might be a situation where you trade. Maybe that's what you use the Zucker first round pick for. You trade the first round pick and Samuelsson for fill in the blank. Kind of like, what I mean? Kind of like what Vegas did with Fleury to get him off their books because they needed the cap space.
Like the reason Matthias Samuelsson got that contract was because he was a reliable stay-at-home defenseman with some toughness. But now he can't stay on the ice. And when he is on the ice, he's not tough. And also, he hasn't been a good stay-at-home defenseman.
No, he hasn't at all.
And the biggest thing is that he hasn't been able to stay on the ice.
Yeah, and yeah, pretty much. One of the questions that was getting asked in the chat, and it may be just a rotational thing, but Rasmus Dahlin was the only guy wearing a letter tonight. There was speculation it could have been a rotational thing because they did say at the start of the season they were going to rotate the assistants by games or whatever. It wasn't going to be a home or away thing. It's going to be rotational. I just kind of find it funny that they knew in the morning skate these guys weren't playing. Why wouldn't you have 2 other assistants out there then in Tuck and Cousins? Was that kind of a message being sent by Lindy? Was it just a coincidence, a rotation thing? I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if that was a message sent by Lindy.
I also wouldn't be surprised if it was a coincidence.
Yeah, it could go either way, right? But I'd prefer it would be a Lindy sending a message. I know Alex Tuck wasn't on the ice. I know Dylan Cousins wasn't on the ice when that all happened, but it doesn't matter because you still played an entire period and there was no response. And you want to let Lindy know that that's unacceptable. That's one way you can do it.
Wasn't Lindy one of their biggest defenders after the game?
He said it was. He said he had a couple guys willing to go, and when asked, he kind of kept contradicting himself. He said that when asked that if there were no guys willing to respond, he said bullshit. Next question. But then later on, he's like, "Well, yeah, no." He said, "Well, you fight somebody else then. You go find somebody else to fight." So he was like defending them, but like they're not defending them. It was a weird post game for Lindy. It was kind of like I felt like he hated having to defend his players in that situation because he knows what the response should have been because he's been there. He's seen it happen in front of him. And he's probably disgusted by the response. Hence why practice and media availability was canceled this morning and why they had that closed door meeting. Could it be a response? Them not having letters on there? It could be. I don't know. I don't know if it was addressed by the media. We could check real quick with Brian Koziel's page, but I don't know, man. I just kind of found it odd that knowing this morning that you weren't going to have your two other assistants, that the other two guys wouldn't have the letter on tonight?
Yeah. I don't know. Hard to say. I think that you don't want to – you can send a message, but you also don't want to make it a thing as much as the media and as much as the fans are, right? You don't want to feed into something that is going to leak over into the next game. Obviously, Dennis Gilbert did what he did, and whether that was up to him or whether that was Alex Tuck and Jason Zucker going up to him and be like, hey, we need someone to do this, and are you willing to be the guy to go out and fight their best guy? Who knows? But I don't know. If I were the coach, I wouldn't necessarily strip a guy of their assistant captaincy just because they weren't the guys to jump off the bench and go after, or even like later in the shifts in the third period to go out and fight somebody. Like we said, we definitely don't want Dylan Cousins doing that, given his history.
No.
And also we don't want Alex Tuck doing that either. I don't know. Again, the one guy, I mean, Jason Zucker, I thought his response was, of course they won, and maybe it could have been better. I thought it was well thought out, and also Alex Tuck point blank saying that won't happen again is all they needed to say.
I just hope he's correct in being truthful with that, because we've heard it before. Sure. Mauricio here. What happened? What has happened to Quinn? Quinn has lost all goal scoring confidence, playing out of control, reckless, fighting the puck, can't maneuver into high danger scoring chances. I did kind of notice that with him tonight. He seemed kind of out of place. Little concerned because he was good. They go on a stretch there where he's playing so well, and he's definitely cooled off again.
Yeah, I think, again, as we've talked about a lot this season, I do think it's a confidence thing for him. I think he's still trying to find his rhythm coming back from those two season-ending injuries last season. It's easier than it sounds, especially lower body, and it looks like he's off balance at times, especially that one chance in front of the net where it looked like Brazilians got over and he was about to shoot, but he decided to pull it back. Yeah. And then even on the power play where he got a one-timer on and then he leaned on his stick and his stick broke and he was like flying.
Yeah, he was really holding both pieces.
I think a lot of athletes know that in any game, in any activity, it really does come down to balance and rhythm. And I don't think he has a lot of that right now, especially in his lower body. And I think that is factoring into what's lacking in a lot of what we saw from him, like Mauricio just said, like maneuvering to the center of the ice into the slot with toe drags, with like good positioning to get the high danger scoring chances that he once did. So I'm going to attribute it to that. I think it's mostly physical, and because it's been as physical as it has been, it's leaking into his mental as well, which is unfortunate. But again, he's very young and he has had good stretches this season. So I'm also not going to give up on Jack Quinn.
What do we think JJ contract will look like? Probably a bridge deal, in my opinion, from Hunter. I don't think he's earned himself a long-term deal. I think it would probably be somewhere around like a 3-year deal, probably. Honestly, 3 years, $15 million. Maybe 18, maybe give him 6. I don't know if that's the number. It's tough because I think you expected him to take a big step forward this year with the season he had last year, and he just definitely kind of disappointed this year. Very inconsistent, very streaky scoring.
I wouldn't go as far to say disappointing, because I do think that in that one stretch, obviously nobody looked good in the winless streak.
Yeah.
But in the other two acts that we talked about at the beginning of the season and what we've seen in the past month and a half, I do think we've seen more of what we saw from him last season than I think a lot of people are talking about. His points, I think he's still on pace to have more points than he did last season, which would be a step in the right direction, right, over the course of the entire season. And he is also still very young, and I think in his 3rd or 4th NHL season. So I wouldn't put it completely on him. He's had like 4 or 5 different lines this season. He hasn't had a level of consistency that I think he probably even expected. If he was playing with Alex Tuck and Tage Thompson the entire year, I do think we would have seen a little bit more consistent production from him. But I don't know. I'd be comfortable.
He has 41 points in 50 games right now.
It's pretty good.
That's not bad.
That's pretty
I
good.
just don't know if that's going to get you an 8-year or 7 or 8 year deal.
No, but anywhere in the 6.5 million range over 3 to 4 years, like that would be worth it. And I think it's a guy, especially with his speed, his two best qualities, which we all know he has, are his speed and his shot. And yeah, he's had stretches where he's kind of disappeared this season, but the entire team has. And 41 points in 50 games, that is projecting towards a 65, 70 point season.
Mm-hmm.
I think if we all, before the season, were asked if we'd be happy with JJ Peterka with a 65, 70 point season, I think we'd all be happy with that. So,
yeah, last season he had actually only 50 points, but he had 28 goals.
Yeah, so his goal scoring has gone down a little bit.
Yeah. So I don't know. We'll see. I just don't think you sign him to an 8-year deal.
I mean, we've seen this movie before, right? With Dylan Cousins, also with Samuelson. Obviously, the Tage one appears to have been worth it.
Even though I think that Peterka will hit that ceiling, that glass ceiling he has. I think that he is the player we thought he was last year. I think he's he plays great in all 3 zones. He's fast.
He's a top
no question. Yeah. So, but it's tough. Like you kind of been jaded, like you said, with Dylan Cousins. You've been jaded with Samuelson. Do you really want to commit that kind of money to a guy? Unless he's going to sign for like $6 million a year, 6.5 or 8, I don't think you give him an 8-year deal. Maybe 3 to 4 years. Maybe even 5. Maybe even 5.
I mean, Dahlin had a bridge deal, right?
Yes, he did.
So therefore, if Rasmus Dahlin could have a bridge deal, I don't think it's out of the question that JJ Peterka would do that.
Right. Olivier is a UFA at the end of the year. I would love that guy on his team. He is tough, but he plays a skill and can play as well. I do like Olivier. I knew right away when Gilbert lined up next to him, they both dropped their gloves, that Gilbert was going to get his lunch fed to him. He's a monster. That's a guy.
There's only a few of guys like him left in the league.
Yeah. And here's the thing, man. Like, when you talk about being tougher to play against, like the narrative was, that's the type of guy you sign. Not Sam Lafferty, not Beck Malenstein. Like, that's the guy you go get. So I'd be all on board with that type of a signing, sure.
I will say I don't know much about his skill or productivity as an actual player.
He's definitely more productive than your average tough guy fourth liner.
He's not Ryan Reeves.
Definitely not. I think there's only one Ryan Reeves.
Or even Matt Rempe. Like, there's no room on any competing NHL roster anymore for strictly an enforcer.
Yeah, Reeves is a waste of a roster spot. He has 18 points in 53 games with 10 goals. So I mean those aren't terrible numbers for.
I mean that would be better than any of our fourth liners.
Yeah, exactly. So and he's got. I mean, it doesn't tell me here how many penalty minutes he has, but I imagine he's. We saw he didn't hesitate at all to fight our biggest tough guy. If you want to laugh at that or not.
I'm all for more toughness, but it's got to be used in an intelligent way. And if that can be a guy that is able to protect your star players while also contributing to the team offensively and defensively, yeah, that's a perfect situation.
Agreed. We got a few new commenters in here. Connor Garrissey. Actually, no. Connor from my gym. What's up, buddy? There he is. I've been texting with him this week about this team, especially ever since Sunday night. Power Ranger can fill holes with what we need if we trade him over Byram. So, I mean, thanks for joining the chat, Connor. Appreciate it. I'll see you at the gym. And then we got this guy right here, C Odds. I know you've been having side conversations there in the chat, but thanks for joining in, man. We appreciate you. Appreciate you hopping in. We always try to recognize the new people in the chat. So, and I agree. Imagine if they never did get rid of Marcus Foligno. That's the kind of guy this team could use for sure. Any final thoughts, girls?
Imagine if we never got rid of Sam Reinhart.
Yeah, great.
Yeah, I mean, like we said, 4 games in a row doesn't happen often with this franchise.
Yeah.
So that's an accomplishment in and of itself. Nashville on Saturday, a team they just beat, a team that is arguably in as precarious of a position as the Sabres are in the West, and a team that is very beatable, especially if Saros is not in net, which he might not be leading into the Four Nations tournament. You might see their backup again, and I think that's a very winnable game. So that would be a 5-game win streak heading into the break. You've got 5 or 6 games coming out leading into the trade deadline. You at least give yourself some shot. I don't think any of us, especially after the West Coast swing, thought this team could ever be in the conversation ever again for the rest of this season. And now that light is still flickering a tiny bit. I am an eternal optimist. I'm at least cautiously optimistic in a lot of situations. But I think if they stay healthy and they keep getting good goaltending performances, not only from UPL, but even Reimer and the spot Levi start here and there, if it's a back-to-back, bring him up, I do think they legitimately could get back into the conversation. I'm not even just saying that. As long as Tage is healthy, especially with some rest, probably, given that he was egregiously left off the USA roster, you can get back into that conversation. And that would be an accomplishment for this group, because I don't think any of us can go through another tanking period where we're all on tankathon trying to figure out.
I never want to go through that ever again.
NHL draft lottery simulator odds so that we can get James Hagens or Porter Martone. I think we would all pay thousands of dollars so that we could at least be in the wild card conversation again, like we were 2 seasons ago when they brought up Devin Levi, and that was exciting, playing meaningful games in April. So that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for this team to have a pulse. I think they showed that tonight. I think their response was good coming off what was pretty much a PR disaster after last game. And I'm pretty confident that a situation like at the end of the Devils game won't happen again. So I'm encouraged by the performance. I'm happy with the response. We'll see what happens on Saturday.
Agreed. From Connor, Brett Murray needs a chance to show what he can do on the team. I actually wouldn't be against that. Was up until a few games ago their leading scorer, and he's a big body. I wouldn't mind him in the bottom 6.
He had a sick move in the AHL All-Star game.
Yeah, he did. You see Devin Levi, the only goalie that went undefeated in the 3-on-0.
I did see that, and I also saw Levi's reaction to Murray's move, which is I quickly on Brett Murray. I saw a lot of people talking about it today. From what I hear, like I've seen him a couple times play. Obviously, he's got a lot of skill, but he's just like a horrendously bad skater. And if you can't skate in the NHL, you're probably not going to be able to compete. It's the fastest league in the world, and the difference in speed between the AHL and the NHL is pretty significant.
I guess it would also be. It would also imagine who you have him out there with. I mean, because you can hide a player's bad skating, for a lack of a better way of saying it, with the right line mates, but I don't think this team has the right line mates for him yet.
Yeah, it's just like
I would like to see him play. I would like to see him given a chance. It'd be nice.
It just seems like there's a lot of guys in the AHL that have the skill to be in the NHL, but they don't have the speed and the compete to be at the highest level. That seems to be the difference with those types of guys. And it seems like that's the case in Brett Murray's situation. But I do like his game, and like even a guy like Rosian tonight, like getting some of these guys shots, getting them looks to at least know what we have, I think is a positive thing moving forward.
I think again, in terms we talked about it earlier, if you're looking to trade any of these prospects with a guy like Rosane, or however you say it, his value probably hasn't been this high since he was drafted. So he's had an incredible year with Rochester. Just want to remind everybody that this has been brought to you by Fatty Beer Company, Western New York's premier market and tap room with over 300 beers to choose from at all their locations. Please let them know Two Goalies when Mike's signing you. You can find them at Fatty Beer on Instagram, on Twitter, fattybeer.com. And as always, Buffalo Logo Apparel. Find them at Buffalo Logo Co. on Instagram and Twitter. I am Duane for Connor Hurley here at I'll Hang Up and Listen. If you liked this video, if you liked this live stream, if you've always enjoyed it, please do me a favor. If you're watching on YouTube, please hit the like button. Make sure you're subscribed. Hit the bell icon so you know when we go live. All those things help us with the algorithm, especially if you like and comment. It helps us a hell of a lot to get noticed out there in the YouTube world. If you haven't subscribed already on Twitter or X or whatever you want to call it, you can find me right there at Duane S39. You can find my co-host Connor Hurley at CHurls13. You can find our podcast at Two Goalies, One Mike. And if you're audio only, you can find us on Two Goalies One Mic on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. We will talk to you. When's the next game?
Saturday.
We'll talk to you on Saturday, unless I'm trying to work on a couple guests right now. Maybe we see you before then. Who knows? But until then, Sabres win their 4th in a row for the first time this season. As always, go Sabres.